Number 2, we will call to order the September 7th, 2023 Village Board meeting. Roll call shows all board members are present. Staff is present except for Jane, who has been excused. Lauren is in taking the minutes, and Attorney Rich is present. Number 4, agenda changes. Are there any? Okay. 5, consent agenda. A, August 17th, 2023 regular board meeting minutes, licenses and permits as presented. C, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village.
There is just one change in the minutes for the vote on the camera policy. In the packet that you have, it was outlined that Grace voted A and it was actually nay. So that has been changed and reflected in the current minutes. Just not what you have in front of you.
Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda with the changes noted.
Second.
Roll call, Grace.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard. Are there any?
There are 2, Colette Reamer at 339 South Mill Street and Bob Reamer at 339 South Mill Street.
Okay, well, this whole thing I think is kind of taking a life on of its own. My whole thing was for safety, for plowing, which we were denied. I don't believe that we should have to pay 100% for that alley. Just today, I took vacation so I could be at this meeting. And while I was home, I did a lot of running in the morning. While I was home, there were 10 vehicles came through, and that is no lie, on the alley. The alley is used constantly for bikes, for vehicles, for FedEx, for whatever. I agree, it has to get fixed. It's a danger. I've seen kids on their bikes take spills. I mean, it's been neglected for a long time. And I believe it needs to get fixed, but not at 100% our cost for neglect. During the winter between me and Bob and the neighbor guy, we did all we could to clear the alley for safety for people. But as far as this whole process goes, I mean, I wouldn't have known anything unless I went into Nathan. And no one else got a letter but me. Then through this, we went to a board meeting, and then all of a sudden we got the letter from the attorney. It was like you get 5 minutes. 5 minutes doesn't answer your questions. 5 minutes doesn't even begin to get the knowledge that you need to know, or to give you the knowledge that we need to know. I believe it was kind of mismatched and thrown together. And that's the process that, every one of you guys are elected, and you know that. But I'm here because I've never really been to a board meeting, but you stand for me and for all of us. But I don't think this process was a very good, for my first time through, I've never been through one of these, it wasn't a good process because I don't believe that we were kept informed. I don't believe that getting your letter or letters one day in the mail or not receiving your letters is a good thing. I don't believe that not even having a public forum or a public thing where we can speak and ask questions is a good thing. I mean, we're citizens just like you are, and you're spending our money. But like I said, I agree that alley something has to be done. It's been let go way too long. And like I said, thank you again for cleaning up. It makes it 100% better backing out seeing those kids. But I don't believe we should cover 100% of that cost.
Thank you.
And thank you for all you who have taken my calls and helped me and worked with me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Bob, did you want to speak?
Oh, I'm Bob Reamer, 339 South Mill.
I think you all agree we pay enough taxes everywhere we go, we pay tax. And I don't think it's fair for the street project that property owners have to pay near 100% to have several $1,000s added to their property tax. And I feel that way for everybody in the village, not just myself. The main thing is, I guess for me, is you can't bill property owners 100% for a road project. Thank you.
Thank you. We go to 7, committee reports. A, library board. Pat?
We met on August 22nd and went through budget discussion. We discussed Ally's performance review, which is going to be done the end of this month. We decided on a format. The employees are filling out their input forms, and then each board member is going to be doing a feedback form and sharing those at our next meeting on September 26th. We had a closed session to discuss payroll and wages for 2024, and in open session, we approved raising the starting pay for library assistants to $15 an hour. The current library assistants will receive $16 an hour, and the program and outreach coordinator will get $19 an hour. We've been working hard to keep bringing the wages up compared to the rest of private sector and other libraries. So that was our recommendation, and we passed that.
Any questions for Pat? Okay, we'll go to B, Public Works Committee, and we're going to basically cover most of it in new business, so unless you have something to say, Aaron, right now?
No, I think it's all gonna be covered in new business. The only other thing that's not on the agenda that was discussed was just more of an FYI of, we think there may be people from outside of the village and maybe tree services dropping off branches at our municipal storage drop-off area. So we're looking at ways to try to combat that.
Okay. We'll move to 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. There is none. 9, new business. A, discussion and possible action on public participation plan for 2043.
Yep.
Comprehensive plan update.
So the MSA provided just their standard plan, basically covering all the areas that we wanted. They're going to be spending most of the time with the Plan Commission, and then they will be doing one public informational meeting. I think it's mid-October. I'll get the exact date for you guys in the next week here, when they're gonna have that scheduled and time. But yeah,
Why are we doing note to 2043 when it says every 10 years?
because it's a 20-year comp plan, but you have to update it every 10 years.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha.
So, do we need some action on this, or
I believe so, yeah.
what are we?
You have to vote, make a motion to pass the participation plan.
Does the plan commission mean the planning and zoning?
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
There's a community survey out already, and then we've tied that into the Village Voice as well. It can be found on our website. The library's been working with us on stuff to help with anyone who needs help trying to fill it out or have access to it, so.
I know we talked about them being at the Senior Autumn Fest and decided it would cost extra, is what you said. So can we have copies of the survey there at the village table for people?
I can if it's still active at that time. They might close it before. Otherwise, I will have I will have some type of work that I can bring there and
Okay,
present, kind of,
okay, that'd be
so
good.
that we don't have to pay for them to be there.
Any other questions?
Well, did we have a public hearing on this already? Was that the last meeting?
No, the public hearing is gonna be, coming up. That would be in, October.
Okay, so prior to adopting the plan, we have to have a public hearing. So what are we
Yes.
voting on then?
You're voting on the actual plan for this public participation. This whole thing as option, this is how we're gonna check the box of the public participation plan, for the state. So basically, you're passing this as a process going for the village.
So the public hearing is to approve the comprehensive plan.
You gotta have a public hearing in order to pass the comprehensive plan.
Correct.
That'll be later on. There'll be a public informational gathering thing, which is gonna be asking people what they would like to see and get their input as well.
So this tonight is just approving the public participation piece of this.
It's approving the plan going forward for how we're gonna implement the strategies, yes.
Okay, not to overcomplicate.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the Village of Hortonville 2043 Comprehensive Plan Update Public Participation Plan as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. B, discussion and possible action on Chimera invoice 9017801610.
So this is a invoice that just came in over 5,000 for ferric that's used in our wastewater treatment plant. Chemical.
Is it something that we generally pay for every year, or is it something that just as supplies needed,
Yeah, it's about twice a year.
and it's a budgeted item, it's,
Yep.
yeah, so it's already part of, it's not outside that.
And it's only available from one supplier.
Yeah. In these quantities, as far as I know, this was a supplier that we've been using.
Okay.
So essentially, it's already a budgeted item we've approved, it's just a matter of approving this invoice.
The invoice, because it's over 5,000.
I will make a motion to approve Chimera invoice 90178011610 in the amount of $12,416.80.
Second?
Roll call, Grace?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. C, discussion and possible action on emergency on North Mill Street, street repairs.
So this all stems back to, on August 17th, we had a sewer backup downtown, which was caused by, we found there was some floating asphalt where basically a lot of the material underneath the asphalt had been washing out in 2 different locations. Further investigations, they found that one of the pipes joining into the manhole was about 95% dislodged. So gravel was getting into the manhole, going downstream, and it ended up actually plugging up our sewer system, which then backed up into behind the downtown area by South Mill Street. So we had that emergency sewer cleanout, and then I approved Emmons to come in and get that fixed, along with another sinkhole that was on South Mill Street, which once we got it excavated, found out that there was the pipe carrying stormwater was completely disconnected, and had been washing gravel into our storm sewer on South Mill Street. So both those 2 areas have been fixed temporarily. and patched, but it just kind of goes to show kind of where we are with some of our infrastructure underneath South Mill Street,
Are we south or north?
North.
or, I'm sorry,
North.
North Mill Street.
Okay.
So, right now, we're looking at possible bids from engineering firms to see what it would cost to redesign the infrastructure on all of South Mill Street,
North Mill Street.
North Mill Street, sorry.
So was that sinkhole in front of the old administration building?
Just,
Kinda close.
yeah. And
Because
then,
that was huge. It was like as big as a car when we were in that building, how many years ago? And I thought they fixed that.
this one is a little bit farther down
It
towards
is.
Main Street.
So
yeah.
there's something wrong with that whole road.
Probably.
So this is very close to, what, like Stroh's?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's where all the barricades were, right?
Yep,
okay.
and all the barricades are
In
gone.
front of the old dealership. It's between the two buildings.
Wow. So
Okay.
you need a motion to approve this?
And this has already been done?
It's already been done.
It's under emergency.
And
Okay.
there's no add-ons or anything.
This is the 14.8?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the emergency repair for North Mill Street in the amount of $14,820.
I'll second. Roll call, Grace?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. Discussion and possible action on Douglas Street project.
So this came up at the last board meeting, and then we discussed it at a Public Works meeting the next week. The direction that came out of that meeting was to see if the county could possibly do it cheaper than, I think, the $41,000 that was quoted for in the contract that we currently have with MCC. I did reach out to the county and was able to get them out there. They can do a more, I won't want to say less permanent fix for $30,000 on this stretch of road. I'm still taking care of the water and things like that. If we wanted to remove this bid item from the current contract, then there is a change order that I had McMahon put together that we could vote on here tonight. Otherwise, the fix that the county would do is a little bit less intensive, but they feel like that it could get us approximately 10 to 15 years out of that stretch of road, which would then line up with about when the rest of Douglas Street would probably be up for doing something to fix that road. So it would be a stopgap, and then we could do the whole thing 15 years from now. Or we could move forward with the $41,000 from MCC.
Okay, so for one, I have two numbers on this sheet. One is, I have three things here. So one I have 41,000, but then in the total for the assessment, I have 50,727.28 cents. So if you look at the for review in the top right, that's at 50,000. So you have a $23,000 and a $27,000 assessment, and then you have a separate item listing of 41,579.75. So you have two numbers on here that don't match.
Yeah, they're all separate.
They're all separate.
So, basically, they pulled out the assessment for the apron and the culvert, because it's only going
Okay.
to one
That
person.
makes sense. Okay, so that's the apron, the difference between the apron and the culvert. Okay, so you would go from, so they can do like a $30,000? Okay, the other thing is the change order in here has alley number 3 and not Douglas
There's
Street.
two change orders.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I have one for LA 3 too, in case you wanted to do
Oh,
that.
okay, there it is,
next.
sorry. Okay, so, and what would they be doing for 30?
I have it here.
Are they doing the culvert?
They'd still do the culvert and the reshaping. It would just be a lot less work
So
of
the
They're
culvert,
not doing a full reconstruct.
the
so,
road.
but the culvert is part of that 30?
Yep. And they would still be doing some reshaping and repaving,
Okay,
but just not a full compacted base fill and complete reconstruct of the road.
okay, so the two numbers to compare are the 30,000 and the 50,000 number, not the 30 and 41 then. Because the 50,000 includes the culvert.
It depends on how we
Culvert and water
assess.
mitigation.
In the past, I mean, these are what we use usually for the preliminaries.
Yeah.
Typically, we end up eating, in the past, we eat the engineering costs.
Okay.
So it would probably drop it down to around 40, but it's up to you guys on what you want to do with it.
So, because in the Public Works meeting, we had discussed, replacing the culverts have to be replaced. There's no way around that because you have to mitigate the water. And I think most of us in attendance, agreed that, you know, the culverts are part of the residence driveway, and we understood that that's, you know, that's an expense that is most likely gonna be assessed to the property owner. So if we're including the culverts in the 30,000, what's the number after we subtract that off then?
21?
21,000?
Yep.
So we would have to pay the county 21,000, which we would have to determine how we're gonna pay for. And then the residents would pay the other 9,000 approximately for the culverts, if we go forward with the
And
project.
ditch work.
Did the county give a timeline?
They said they could do it the other year.
Do it this year.
What's the difference between what MCC would do in the county? Like so 10 or so years with the county, how many years?
30 approximately.
And if it's pulled out of this whole contract bid, what's gonna happen to the Wildland?
That one's fine. The
Nothing's
only
gonna
one
change
that we
price.
don't know about is Alley 3 might increase,
Okay.
which they never gave us an answer on.
They tried to get answer before the meeting, they couldn't.
So
They said they were looking into it.
The county didn't give you an answer?
No,
until-
MCC,
Oh,
Because
because this would come out of the signed contract that we
Okay.
already had with them.
okay. Do you have any feelings either way as far as?
Maybe, I would guess maybe slightly, but, you know, these are such smaller project pieces of this contract that I would guess, as busy as they are, it may just go out.
Well, the issue is that the type of machine that they're using for the alleyway is the same one they use for this road. They're not using that for Wildwind. So basically, our engineer said that he was actually surprised on the quote that we got because it was such a little amount of work to use that piece of machine. It's usually the mobilization cost is more.
Yeah.
So,
They were spreading that cost between Douglas Street and Alley 3. Now, when we pull out Douglas Street, you know, they may gripe about only bringing it in for that small Alley 3 project.
Which could increase the price of the alley project, but we
And
don't
for
know.
that line item, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we had an understanding that they were laid out separately so that way we could
That,
do a change order and potentially remove one or both of the
that was the way it
projects.
was supposed to be bid.
Yeah,
So, you know, I think it would be a back and forth with them if they
Okay.
wanted to argue it.
okay.
I apologize, I wasn't at the Public Works meeting, but did you guys, I was there, did you discuss like the assessments that are gonna get passed to residents? And what
Well,
that would look
so,
like?
no, basically the way the assessment process works is you do the preliminary special assessment, that gets passed by the board. They set a public hearing date, and then we send out letters to all residents within the area to be assessed. They would all get it, we'd have a public hearing, they'd come, state their issues with it, or talk to them about the project. And then basically at a future meeting, the board would then potentially take into consideration what the residents say and potentially pass the final special assessment. So typically, the staff usually puts together in the preliminary special assessment the total cost, period. So then basically, even if we have funds set aside to reduce down some of them, we usually do the full cost right away, and then allow the board to kind of make those decisions
After the preliminary.
after the preliminary.
Yeah. The discussion with the Douglas Street here was that the preliminary numbers, I mean, which you can see are 23,000 and 27,000 for the two property owners. That's just, that's unreasonable. right? I mean, it's just completely unreasonable. So the consensus at the meeting was the best way to move forward was to either not move forward, which you can't do nothing, but at the very minimum, the culverts have to be done. Because you have water coming in there, it's getting underneath the road and it's damaged, it's falling off on the side of the road. So ideally, you would redo the whole road, redo the culverts. At a minimum, you have to redo the culverts because otherwise the damage is going to continue at an accelerated pace. And then we instructed Aaron to go talk to the county and see if there was a lower cost alternative, which is what he presented at the about $21,000 mark.
Not 30.
Well, if you
Well-
include the culverts.
So, yeah, so an additional discussion at the Public Works meeting was that, that the property owners, very likely the property owners would be responsible for the cost of the culverts in front of their driveways. Because the culverts have failed and that's what's causing the water to drain and get underneath the road, and I believe it's in the right of way, but it's still part of it's part of their driveways.
Is it just one culvert, right?
Yeah.
The 9,000, I believe it also is the ditching,
Yeah, reshaping of the ditch.
which probably doesn't necessarily mean that it's the homeowners,
Yeah.
because the ditch has always been like that. It just never was done correctly.
I did put an inquiry into Hortonville board as to why the hell their sign is where it is. And
Yeah, I was curious on that too.
so if you go out and look at the road, the previous reconstruction of the road stops at the sign that says "Welcome to Hortonia." The sign that says "Welcome to Hortonia" is in the wrong place. So this section of the road was never done, and now we're in a situation where you only have, it might have been better when you had 4 or potentially 5 property owners to split the cost between, but now we're in a situation where you only have 2, and only one of them even has a driveway access to it.
So would it be better to hear about the alley 3 from the county's perspective before we make a decision, or did you say they looked at alley 3 also?
No,
I'm
just, this
sorry.
was the only project that we had to cover.
Oh, I'm sorry, misunderstood. Okay.
To piggyback on Pat's question though, to wait for MCC to give us an answer on whether LA3 price would change? I mean, not to shape the etch a sketch here, but we already agreed to this, didn't we? The board approved this whole thing, 3 projects. So we're kind of backpedaling a little bit here. And time is of the essence because MCC can come tomorrow and just start laying, because we agreed to it, right? I mean, am I?
Technically,
Technically, they could.
they know that we have
They
these
know
in front of
this.
the board tonight, and they're kind
So-
of waiting to hear.
Do you think you'll be getting an answer about LA3? I would hate to see that cost go up exponentially. We're just robbing Peter to pay Paul here. You know what I mean? Like, so what if that cost for LA3 goes up, and then
It would,
because we saved
it
money
would
at Douglas?
still be in the preliminary assessment then, those extra costs, but then we'd still, like Nathan said, have the hearing, and there would be some potential things that the board may do to reduce those costs.
So the board could potentially save money on Douglas, but then end up eating a cost on LA3 is what I'm trying to get at is, so let's say the difference in cost here is 15,000 or whatever it turns out to be. But then alley number 3 ends up being $10,000 more. So who's eating that? Well, but who's eating that? Like, so we have residents here talking about, obviously they're concerned about alley number 3. And if that increases the amount of what that project is gonna cost, because we saved a little, we saved a lot, I should say, not a little, a lot here. I'd like to find out with alley number 3 how much, if a cost would change, but maybe not at all. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be something that you would have to go back and forth with MCC. We were trying to get an answer for them, and they just did not
They
get
just
back to us before. We
didn't-
started this process trying to get that answer from them on last week.
Do you hear me, Jim?
Oh, yeah, I definitely hear you.
just
I hear you.
fear
So here's my thought.
doing this, and then it
Yes.
changes that price,
So-
and then who's eating that?
So because we don't have control over it, and we don't have visibility into what could happen, I think we look at them separately to start with, but we do have the option to pull both of them out of the contract, right? So with MCC, if it turns out that if we pull out, if we decide to have the county take care of Douglas Street, right, we pull it out of the MCC contract, and MCC comes back and says, well, it's gonna be $12,000 more, then we can tell, we have a quick meeting, and we tell MCC, pull this one out too. So don't do either one, and we will put this into the next project.
And we have the legal authority to do that, I guess that's my question, because the board already approved all 3 projects to move forward. This is sort of an amendment.
This is a change order.
This is a change order, but do they have to accept the change order?
Did they accept the bid?
The-
Did the village accept the bid?
Mm-hmm.
And was there a contract?
The board approved it.
I don't think that precludes you from renegotiating something, doing another change. The extent of the change would determine whether or not you'd have to rebid it. No one else had an opportunity to bid it the way it's changed. But I think if it's a kind of a, I don't want to say detail of the project, if it's not the kind of the main thing, I don't think you have to rebid it.
I just want to
Yeah,
make sure
it's
we're not locked
hard for you to
into
understand.
something.
We have one very large
What you-
project,
yeah.
and then 2 very small ones that we kind of threw in
To the bid.
separately, in the bid, but listed off separately, so that way, if for some reason we had to cut them out, we could.
Yeah.
So they were bid as a separate item in the,
I think you're okay.
okay. That's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So that's my thought, is that if we decide to move forward with this, with the Douglas, we move forward with the Douglas and reducing the expense there. And then if MCC comes back and it is unreasonable, or in an area that, say, we are not comfortable absorbing that much of a change with the funds from the village, that may or may not be available, then we look at pulling that second change order in. We would just have to have a special meeting to do it. That would be my suggestion. And I understand exactly what your concern is, because I don't want the residents to have to pay extra because if you look at the numbers, we're talking about a number the number that you're looking at taking off of this bill is almost the equivalent of the total charge for the other projects as well.
I agree.
So it's not a small amount that we're looking at.
No, it depends on how flexible MCC is on this, because
Yeah.
we approved and signed the contract.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, it looks like we have to move forward. I think, my biggest concern is the assessments, which is not the topic of issue, but they go hand in hand. And if we could later on discuss like a wheel tax, which I think has been discussed with the board in the past, and I don't want to get into it tonight because that's not what the topic is, but just to soften, or because Hortonville's going to keep doing streets, and I don't want to get too much into the wheel tax, but I just want to really be an advocate for residents, and I'd feel the same way if my street was getting redone, and I don't want to be handed a 2 or 3 up to $5,000 assessment,
About 25.
or $25,000. I mean, our streets need repair, so we could all pool that together and have an easier time and, be able to pivot it moving forward.
If Douglas was a more frequently used road, I would be more concerned about the 10 years versus the 30 years. I mean, I prefer a 30-year road versus a 10-year road. But Douglas is not one of those frequently traveled, and it's a very small section.
Didn't you say that adding the 10 years or whatever to it would,
10,
kind of
15.
would kind of match it to where the other one needs to be, the 420 needs
Yeah.
to be replaced too?
Not
Or
420.
our-
Or the
ours.
other?
Ours.
Yeah,
Our
well,
section,
420 already
yeah.
needs to be replaced,
Right.
but-
Yeah.
But it would kind of
So
match.
then it would be a project,
Yeah,
and a
if it's
full
a-
project at some point.
Co-terming it, I guess, if you will.
It was what, 2003? It was almost, or 2006, something like that.
It's like 20 years old right now.
Yeah.
Close to 20 years old.
Yeah, and then, I mean, Hortonia, not to say anything bad about them, but they tend to let their stuff go quite a bit, you know, before they go through and do repairs. And possibly when they do theirs, we can piggyback on top of that and work with them and, you know, get a combined contract somehow. I don't know, you're shaking your eyes back and forth like I'm
Well,
crazy.
because I mean, are you talking about like when we do the full reconstruct of Douglas
Yeah.
in 15 years from now?
Yeah.
Because they're gonna redo theirs before 15 years from now.
Maybe.
I wouldn't,
I wouldn't want it.
if I was a betting man and I
They have
am,
many other
I would
roads
take
to
that
do
back.
before that.
According to the county, it's one of their worst ones. So.
yeah, well, I would still take that bet because I know
No, I
how
know.
they are with
I
their
get it.
funds. They're picky on their stuff, especially if it's already, because it's in a fairly solid state of disrepair at this point. So you know, they may come up with a simple fix to get them through another 5 to 7 years, and then just let it go after that and do a full reconstruct like we've done in some that, you know, it doesn't pay to do maintenance on some roads when you're just you put the money somewhere else and then wait and just let it go, let it deteriorate until you're gonna strip it away anyway. It just makes more sense, and knowing Dennis and Nancy and the way I do it, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes until we need to do it.
Mhm.
And they would probably be thinking the same thing that I'm just saying right now, is that they can piggyback on top of our project to redo the road. So, I guess I'm in favor of the moving forward with the county's proposal for that. We don't have anything formal on that one, so.
I change over.
You'd
We need
approve
to
the
do-
change order.
Okay, so.
We need to do the
um,
change order.
So I'm gonna make a motion to approve the change order. Is there a number on this?
This one,
Figure
right
one
here,
for
is your
contract.
change order.
Yeah, but is there a number for the change order? then?
One. Number
Change
one.
order number 1 to remove Douglas Street from the MCC contract. Or McMahon contract.
I mean, I'm not sure. How are you guys feeling? Like, do you feel strongly one way or another? Because I could understand why you would go for the 30-year road. What is there a downside?
Normally I would argue heavily for the 30-year road, because otherwise it's kind of a waste. Because you're basically dropping 10,000 to lessen it by half. So, but because of the fact of where this is and the 257 feet that it is of the road that should have just hit to the extension,
Yes.
it does make sense somewhat, so that when we go back or 15 years from now, to be able to just do it all at once to the edge of the village limits, not just piecemealing it again, because otherwise you're going to continue this going forward.
Making the
and-
whole section of ours
Right.
the same life
It could
cycle.
realign with the new
Real
Douglas
life cycle
project
as
that
a
takes
whole.
it.
So then you're not basically having to come back to these two people, or whoever they are, in
Yeah.
30 years from now,
Yeah.
having to reassess them for just these two to have it done. So
Okay.
there is a decent reason to kind
And if
of
this
go.
was
And
a
you may not
15
have to do the culvert over in 10,
Well, right.
15 years.
Right.
So that's gonna take some cost off also.
Yeah.
So you have to think of that. You know, so the road isn't gonna cost as much as it would right now. Because we're doing it now. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, Grace?
In a motion to,
Approve the change order to remove the Douglas Street from the current contract.
I,
Aye.
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 Motion carried. E, discussion and possible action on resolution R-19-23, preliminary special assessment for alley number 3.
So just to kind of rehash this also came up at the last board meeting. We brought it to the Public Works Committee meeting. Talked about different options that were available for Alley 3. One of the direction that came out of that meeting was to give residents an option to basically discontinue the road. So a letter was put together using the attorney's language with that option and sent out to the residents stating if over 50% of the linear footage of the road wanted to pursue discontinuance of that road, that they need to let the village know basically before this meeting. I did hear from one resident that said he may have been interested in, but didn't think that 50% of the people would be. So at this point, as far as the private property owners getting back to the village and saying that they were in favor of getting their own attorney pursuing discontinuance, that never happened. So basically, we have the option to leave it in the contract, move forward with the preliminary assessment, which would then, as Nathan outlined, go out to a public meeting, come back to the board where they could discuss potential ways of lowering that amount that's put on the landowners. Or we can remove it completely from this contract. There is a scope change or a change order for removing this part of the contract in the packet as well. So basically, which way does the board want to pursue Alley 3? But right now, it's currently in MCC's contract to do it.
There's a couple of things that I might, you can special assess something after it's already been constructed. You don't need a specific contract amount to do your special assessment. You can do it after the construction and all the costs are in. The second thing is that you're not really doing a preliminary special assessment. What a preliminary resolution is it is an intent to special assess. It's not, doesn't have any legal status at all as a special assessment. The statutory process is you first do a resolution expressing intent of special assessing. The next step in the process is that you have what's called an engineer's report, where you describe the project, give an estimate of total costs, and then you give a possible schedule of assessments. None of it is binding on you. Okay, and then that preliminary resolution and that engineer's report are then the subject of a public hearing. The engineer's report and the preliminary resolution of intent to special assess should be sent to all the affected property owners. Then there is a public hearing, and then it is further discussed. You can drop the project, you can tweak it, you can decide how you're going to assess or how much the community is going to contribute to the cost. And then once you decide all those things, then you do what's called a final resolution. And the final resolution then gets published. A copy of it is sent to all the affected property owners, and then that becomes your special assessment, and that becomes a lien on the property. So, the kind of the thing that, well, we didn't have any notice on this or anything, that there is this progression, and you do have a statutory requirement for notice and a hearing.
Yep. So
But
almost halfway.
there is no commitment on your part at this time to do anything in any form or fashion other than an intent to look into it and run some numbers and some ideas, and then have it before a public hearing.
I think we're slightly less than halfway there because it's in front of us to do the intent, and we have the numbers already. We have the engineering report,
Well, you
we have
have
the
the
numbers.
engineer's report.
We have a contract already agreed to do it, but we never know the numbers until they're done with the actual
But
construction.
still, you still got how you're gonna do a schedule of assessments, and you're still gonna decide how much, say, for example, the village would contribute,
Yes.
or what kind of adjustments you're gonna have, a corner adjustment or whatever.
Yes. Which is
So
the
you're
public
not
hearing or
committed
the
at
final
this point.
assessment.
Yeah, the more information you have, obviously, the better, farther along you are, but it worries me when you say it's a special assessment already. It's not a special assessment until you go through the whole process.
Any questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
If so, if this is taken out, what is gonna happen? Who's gonna redo it, or it's just gonna sit, or?
Snow removal is my understanding is really well, the condition of the road, but also snow removal was a big issue. I know that was brought up a long time ago about how they can't get a plow down there with the gravel, so, or the way the road's, the condition. So I don't think not doing it or not doing something is an option.
And the condition is so poor that it's kind of past the point of no return. It's almost turned back into a gravel road at this point.
I don't think even the property owners have I don't think there's even a serious debate about whether or not something actually has to be done. The road is in a complete state of disrepair, and I think we need to move forward. Like I said, I was contacted, so in the public hearing, talking to Ashley, we found out that we, as a board, can't vacate the road because we would create, not legally, because we would create landlocked properties in there, and we are unable to do that. The courts are unable to do that. The only way that that can actually be done is if the residents themselves, more than 50% of the lineage, was to petition the board, then we would have the option to approve that. And I was contacted by one of the residents, one of the primary residents, and they have no interest in a shared use driveway or anything of that nature. So without, I told that resident, in my opinion, I don't think that even if they had the petition, if one of the residents said, I don't want to have a shared use contract with my neighbors for this driveway, I don't think in good conscience we could say, let's vacate the road and even approve the petition. So I think we're in a situation now where we've provided the residents with the option and to petition us to try to see if there was another solution to what they were looking to the road, and they didn't come together and agree, and we're in a position where we have to do the road now.
What public hearing are you talking about?
Public
Public
Works
Works.
meeting.
Public Works, sorry.
Meeting.
Public Works meeting.
I'm like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
public hearing is yet to
No, no,
come.
Public
or
Works
the
meeting.
process.
It was a Public Works meeting.
Meeting, okay.
I think Ashley sent us all that
Yeah.
letter
she
detailing
did.
those
Mhm.
things too, so.
Yeah. She's just explained it in a little plainer language than the
Okay,
legal.
but it was nice that we got the letter back.
Yeah, I was just trying to reiterate it a little further.
Taking it out,
Taking it out's not gonna do any good.
no.
Yeah, so at this point, I think it's my opinion that we should move forward and not remove it from the contract unless MCC turns around tomorrow and says, yeah, we're gonna
Massive dollar.
we're gonna charge you, double the cost for that road now because you took the Douglas Street out. And at that point, my opinion would be completely different.
Mhm.
And I don't have,
If that happens, we could schedule a special.
yeah,
meeting.
we'd have to have a special board meeting in order
And
to,
then we could remove it if
Then
that
we could.
happens.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
that would be my position then too.
Yep, I agree.
So we still need a motion for this R-19-23.
If I could though address real quick, so the residents that are here tonight that gave us, that spoke, I mean, so there's a letter that was sent that was worded via the attorney, correct? But we had, this is the
The only-
second meeting you've been, I mean, we've had things that have gone out, right? Because
No, because typically,
Not technically,
the only
no.
reason the resident got the preliminary the engineering report before we came to this meeting was because she stopped into the office.
Okay,
That is technically not what we normally do,
okay.
but she was in the office and I went and talked to her about, you know, this is what it is. So typically, none of the residents in any other special assessment scenario would ever have gotten that until after tonight,
Okay.
when you, if you guys approved the preliminary, then it gets sent out to all the residents. So that's the only reason that they had it before, was because she stopped in the office and we were
Okay.
talking about
I
it.
just wanted to understand,
Right.
you know, because I knew the letter was going out after our Public Works meeting, and I knew that was happening, but, yeah.
And this is just the intent. The specifics are not figured out, this is just the intent, like you stated. We intend to do a special assessment for it, but the numbers are just estimates from engineering. They're not, there's nothing written in stone anywhere as to how this is going to.
Well, before the public hearing, you will have to have some estimated.
plan.
Yes,
Yeah.
we already have some estimates now, but,
So we're following the process.
okay. So I will make a motion to approve R-19-23.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. F, discussion and possible action on intergovernmental maintenance agreement with Outagamie County.
So our current agreement with Outagamie County is up, or will be up, so basically the board has the option of going with a 1, 3, or 5-year agreement, which I've put them all into the packet, and it just has basically a minimum commitment that we have of funding that we're gonna do with the county. If you go with a 1 or a 5 versus a 1, that commitment is just lower per year. To be honest, using them for our snow removal, we pretty much hit the commitment just with that anyway. So I guess my recommendation would be going with the 5, but you have all 3 options in front of you.
What is our agreement right now? Do we just go year to year? Is that what we've been doing?
No,
I think it was a 3-year.
three-year
It was a
agreement.
3-year?
Yeah,
And I believe the
But the
number was
5-year
around,
makes more sense,
yeah.
you know, to lock it in, especially with the cost of everything.
This just locks us, I mean, this doesn't set their rates at all. It just
Right.
says we're going to use their
We're gonna
service.
spend this much
You're-
each year.
This much money.
minimum of their
A
Minimum
service.
minimum
spend.
spent every year.
They use this to leverage the board to get out, if they need more
Yeah.
personnel. So they get it from a bunch of communities and they say, well, we have this much committed from all these municipalities, we need to have this many personnel.
And this is all, I mean, this is crack fill, this is snow removal, this is all the stuff that they,
Repairs,
Yeah.
anything.
something like the
Douglas Street.
Douglas Street.
Street
Yeah.
sweeping potentially,
Okay.
painting.
I would be in favor of the 5-year,
Yeah.
unless there's a discussion.
Any questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the intergovernmental maintenance agreement for 5 years.
I will second that.
Roll call, Grace?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. G, discussion and possible action on TID number 3, stormwater pond restoration.
So this is a stormwater pond over by, is it Wolf River Bank? Wolf River Bank. The retaining wall that goes around by their parking lot is starting to collapse.
Where's
The
the,
lighting place right on Main Street there, that one.
where's the pond?
The
By
ponds,
front
like,
of the
it-
strip
Oh,
mall?
oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking of the
Yeah.
old Wolf River, sorry,
No.
my bad.
Well, the one by the school.
Yeah, I was thinking of the one that's
Yeah,
over
not
by
the
the
one-
bridge.
no, not
The one-
that
There's no
one.
pond over there.
Yeah, no, and it's, so the stones, the fill underneath them has been eroded, and they're just starting to kind of tumble over. So I called 3 different excavating companies, 2 or 4. 2 of them didn't even return my call, they're too busy. The other guy that I talked to said there's no way he could get to it yet this year. And then the last person, Kurt Services, met me on site. We discussed a plan to use to remove the failing wall and build it back better with interlocking retaining block. that's gonna hold a lot better and put a better base on it so that it's gonna last a lot longer. And this is a cost that he gave me to do that.
Didn't a car go into that pond?
No.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, I mean, did that have any part of the damage?
Oh, I don't know.
No, that was out front.
Okay. 'Cause
It
there was a
was
car that
over-
went into that pond.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
But it's in bad shape.
Yeah,
It looks horrible.
and it's one, I guess, nice thing was that we got so little bit of rain this year, you could really
You see it.
see what the issues were. And it's gonna be a lot easier to fix, to be honest with you right now, because the water levels are so low, if they stay that low. And he is able to do that yet this year, where nobody else could even touch it, they're so busy.
We got money in the budget to cover, it's $6,000.
It's yeah, TID will pay for it. I mean, it's not in the budget. The TID makes enough of a profit each year that it could fund it, so we'd have to amend the budget to actually do the work. But, yeah.
We would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the TID 3 stormwater pond restoration in the amount of $5,750 to Kurt Services LLC.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Grace.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. H, discussion on potential DNR grant award for Alonzo Park.
So this is a grant for, a lot of the Alonzo Park upgrades that have come in front of this committee before. We were notified that we were preliminarily approved for a grant in the amount of over $500,000 to help pay for some of the upgrades. This is, nothing's been signed yet or in writing yet, but this is kind of where the DNR releases their grants. They kind of send all these out to their first picks. So this is where, and then make sure they go through the process of making sure everything adds up. And then if we could get a contract with them, then we would enter into an agreement for this $500,000. We ended up pulling a couple things out of the master plan that was submitted as part of this grant application, but the things that we pulled out were like new well house and things like that that didn't affect our grant scoring. So through preliminary conversations with this DNR contact, it didn't sound like that was going to be an issue. The one thing that did come up is that they are asking for us to do an preliminary archaeological assessment of the area. Not because there has been anything found there, just because there's never been one done. So I'm looking into different contractors to do that for us. It's pretty standard in grant agreements just because they don't want to be using federal dollars to be disturbing Indian burial grounds or something like that. So, sometimes there are areas that are known archaeological sites and that kicks you into a different process, but right now this one is just in the preliminary phase to ensure that there isn't anything there. That's kind of the first step of the process. We'll hire a firm, or I'll get some quotes and bring it back to the board to choose a firm to do that for us. If they do find something, then that would kick us into, I think, a phase 2 archaeological assessment where they actually do go out there and dig pits and look for things that could be considered archaeological. But that's kind of goes down that path. So if we get through the first phase 1, basically archaeological assessment, then that satisfies that, we can move forward with the grant. It's been pretty standard on other grants that I've received for other things.
What do you need from us here to move forward on
That part was just more of an FYI to let you know that we have been preliminary awarded, and that we're gonna be looking at different firms to do that archaeological assessment.
Do colleges ever do those, universities?
I think you have to be certified,
Okay.
to be able to do it.
What kind of expense are we looking at?
It's a pretty small area. I'm hoping under 5,000.
Okay.
There's a lot of paperwork involved with it, but I would guess maybe even half that.
This is great news.
Yes, it is.
So it's
Yeah.
an eligible expense. This is the archaeological thing is
Oh, okay.
eligible expense.
Okay.
Any other
Yeah, we need to
questions?
do
Yeah.
Good work.
Good work, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we'll move to I, discussion and possible action on fundraising for Alonzo Park.
So, we've been looking at options of what we can do to try to get people to donate. Basically, the structure kind of came up with was one, what you could name the naming rights for the playground and splash pad for 20 years, which is the life of a playground, typically, is what you see. The other thing was potentially you could reserve the park for a private event for a day for a period of 10 years. And then one of the other things was the Village Voice ads. I wouldn't tell them it's a fourth page, but you could give them 5 years of free ads potentially in our Village Voice, which would help incentivize potentially a donor. Where it says grand donor, I mean, the naming is different, obviously it could be changed, but the amount, I don't know what you would want, because it would only be one person who's obviously gonna get potentially the naming rights, which would have to be an agreement between the board and them, on that, but.
Could it be like Smith family or
Yeah,
whatever?
I mean, you just wanna make sure that it's not like something.
Bob, Sue, Jim, Bob, really like.
Well, I mean, as long as it's not inappropriate or
Right.
something like that potentially, but, yeah. So I didn't know if you guys, what your thoughts were on the amount that you wanted. I was thinking between 50 and 75,000. The other sections would just be basically Village Voice, 20 years on a sign, as a major or minor donor, and then, obviously a cutting ceremony.
And to clarify, the naming rights is just playground and splash pad.
Correct,
It's
not-
still Alonzo Park.
Because
just-
it's not Alonzo Park, it's Hortonville Alonzo Lions Park.
Wow, okay.
That is the official name that was sold to the Lions Club when it was,
that's
And they have a perpetual naming rights on that?
yes,
Okay,
so.
interesting.
But would we just put up like a plaque that says, these are our grand donors, these are,
Yeah,
we're
I
not
mean,
putting plaques all over the park, right?
well, I wouldn't say plaque, it would be
But like a sign
it
of
would be a
some
nice
sort.
sign. I've gone to a few different places that have that.
And I see them at like the racetracks
Right.
and stuff where they say, these are platinum donors, these
Right.
are
It'd be the same.
gold
type of thing.
donors, these are silver donors.
Right.
I mean, I don't want, like I said, trying to avoid a bunch of plaques all over.
Yeah, I didn't want that either, that's
Bob
why,
bought this
that's why the amounts
slide,
are
Bob.
higher. Basically, the other thing that we came up that, I met with, Peter, and Jane, and we were discussing some of the, funding levels and stuff, and kind of some ideas on how to fundraise and how we wanted to kind of do it. For donors from like around 1,000 or so, for the smaller donors, you could always do, what they came up with was, some type of plaque that you give them,
Like a recognition plaque.
saying that they donated to the park, not a plaque in the park.
Park.
Right. They can hang it on their wall.
Right.
So you need a motion to go ahead with this?
Well, I just need to, I need to make sure that you guys are good with selling the naming rights potentially for 20 years. I need to know the amount you would like at that top donor amount, if it's 75, 50, and then, just to make sure that
Do
you
we
guys
have to
are,
put a top level? Can we just say 50 and above?
well, you're only gonna get one.
I agree.
Then you're pretty much just putting it at 50, right?
That's what I said.
Well, the splash pad could be one name, and couldn't the playground be another? Potentially.
You could do it that way, yeah.
You know, then
That's
you can
kind of
talk
why I
about
was thinking
playground.
70, if you put it at 75, I think the one nice thing is being able to privately reserve the park for a day each year for 10 years. If you're a business, that might be nice for like a
Company.
corporate company picnic day. Yep.
Mhm.
I
So-
think that's what I wanted to find. So does this, that 50 to 75, let's say 75, gives you the naming rights to both? Or
Yes.
is it per? Like, is
My
it-
thought was it would be easier to sell it as a both thing, because they're pretty much gonna be right next to each other, and I think it would be a little harder to kind of, I mean, you could do it.
So looking ahead in the future, amphitheater,
Right.
that could be another naming right, is what you're
Correct.
saying, okay. I think, yeah.
I think part of the idea going forward after this would be to kind of look at the actual cost of all those other pieces
Mm-hmm.
and just sell the naming rights at the actual cost until maybe the village wants to take on one of the projects and then maybe lower the cost for the naming rights to get some help with it. But that way, if someone comes around and wants to spend 30,000 on a pier or a fishing pier, we kind of, have that ready for them, and they can pay for it all, and the village wouldn't.
Well, I think if it includes the playground and splash pad, it's a 75,000 level, not 50.
I agree. That was kind of my thought with it, but, we can always reassess later if we're not getting anyone to bid at.
Mm-hmm. I would go the
Or
high
if
end.
somebody came and said, I'd like to do one or the other at 50
Yeah.
or.
It's just my thought. If it included both, I would want the high end.
Mhm.
Make it a sale, just like you do in the store. 50,000 each or 75 for both. It's just psychologically, there's a reason
Yeah.
that you get the
That
second
could
one for 20, you get the second one for half.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't
it's
get
not
one
bad
half price.
I think so.
Or, yeah, I'd even go higher with that, but that's me. There's some deep pockets
Mm-hmm.
around here,
Yes.
yes. And that's where I look at that and go, is that even enough?
That's the hard, so that's the struggle, right? So you can put it at a high amount that you might not get anyone to budge on it.
Correct.
But there is that case where you could be missing out on some funds too because of the fact that someone would have paid more. I'm not the person to know whether 75 is good for this area or not. I know we've had trouble in the past getting bike storage. So, I mean, it seems like it's off and on depending on what you're doing and what you're getting, what you can get. I don't know.
I don't know.
Did we had information on the football field, how they went about that. Do you remember? Or do you have that information?
I don't
Naming
have that
rights?
information. I know what the naming rights were sold for, but I don't know if that's open.
Oh, I thought it was open.
I don't know.
I thought,
I'm just
That's-
saying.
I believe it is open record.
I know where we got it. When I worked at Mosquito Hill, they came
Okay.
with that information, but I think it's public record.
Yeah, but it might be a little different buying naming rights for a football field for 20 years than
Might be good to compare though.
it was. I believe it was 200,000.
Okay.
That's a perpetual announcing that business at games.
And having the big recognition, right?
Right. Little
I
different.
get it, yeah.
That's kind of why I think we're actually in a good spot. I mean, if not, I mean, if we find it was really quick to find someone, obviously we're most likely gonna probably go and do this again, maybe for the pavilion, if we wanna do that, fundraising after and just kind of continually fundraise until we have enough to actually do it. That might be another option too, and you'll kind of have an idea of what someone's gonna donate to.
So what you're looking for tonight is more of a head nod sort of thing, or do you want a motion? Do you want to remove that range? Do you want a specific dollar? What would you like?
I think I'd like a motion, maybe not to the specifics, but just basically that you're good with us shopping the naming rights around and potentially with these type of benefits with the levels. Because I think some people might not like the fact of closing a park technically, we rent a park right now, but it's only a pavilion. You don't get the whole park when you rent the pavilion. So it's a little different of a scenario when you're closing down a whole park.
Because you're closing on the splash pad, and, yeah,
Well,
so
right.
something that would normally be open to the public, you'd be
Right.
closing that down, it'd
For
be
a
a
private
private
event.
party.
Right,
Normally,
So-
if you rent Alonzo Park, you don't.
You can have strangers in your
right,
park
Yep.
event.
right. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were good with that, and then potentially the free ads in the Village Voice. If we get that, most likely we won't have ads to sell, which is kind of a benefit. We won't have to find businesses necessarily to.
It'd already be pre-done. so you
Right,
have to
because
go
we
on.
wouldn't have to redo it every year, and
It's
it
built
would.
into this contribution price.
Correct, and I think it's an easier way for us to, I mean, yes, you're not gonna recoup your costs for the Village Voice, but you will have an option to kind of sell. I mean, as a business, if you're spending $5,000 and you get, you know, your ad 4 times a year for 5 years or 2 years or whatever it is, I mean, it's something, so.
So,
I have one more question. If somebody does this for the grand donor,
Right,
can somebody else actually reserve the whole park for a day?
No.
To pay, for pay?
No.
So if they saw a business reserve?
well, in our current structure, no. The
Yeah.
board can decide what they wanna do with anything,
Because
but
that question might come up if we
Right,
allow
and
that.
I think the board would be able to make that decision. I think my fear would be you have pretty much, you get 3 months, right?
Right,
So you have 12 weeks of weekends of weather that's
Mhm.
probably gonna be good enough for a splash pad.
mhm,
One technically is gonna be gone.
right.
If you did rent out the whole park, I think most likely it's not gonna be a public park. Because most likely people are gonna wanna
It's a
rent it
slippery
for-
slope, I
Right.
think.
if somebody comes from outside the area to use the splash pad and it's closed for the day.
I wouldn't want that to
I
happen.
wouldn't
I
want
want
that to
that
ever
to
happen.
happen.
This
And
would be
that was why the-
exclusivity.
Yes.
That's
why I
what-
figured if it was one, it would be maybe okay. But
It'd be weekday.
It makes it exclusive, which makes it, you know, if I'm a business and I want to do something for my community once a
Mhm.
year and have a day, then,
Mhm.
the only thing that would kind of make it tricky is you pretty much couldn't use that going forward then as an option too. So like if we're looking at fundraising for like the pavilion, I mean, you could give them a free pavilion rental, but you wouldn't be able to really close the park down, because then you're gonna come into this same scenario where,
correct. But the splash pad and playground are naming rights for that. But if it's
correct,
naming rights for the pavilion, amphitheater, whatever you wanna call it, then that would be exclusive, a one-day shutdown to the public for just that piece.
potentially, you could do it that way.
Like they could, we're not gonna have anything fenced off. How do you even begin? mean,
I was
that's
just
their
gonna, I
problem.
was just thinking,
That's
how do
their
we
problem
stop
to
that?
figure out. Like Lions Park is awesome because it's completely fenced in. There's never going to be that unless a group comes in and puts some sort of temporary fencing around.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
you're
they would
going
have to put
want
up
it-
something that says
Yep,
private
and
event
you
only.
want it that for the day, that's something you need to
Right.
do on your own, yeah. Okay. So you do want a motion? or
I would like to have a motion that you guys are good with, I guess, the benefits for donating and then the grand donor at, or whatever we want to name it. I just chose those names.
Okay.
They don't have to
Yeah, because I
stay.
would nix the minor donor,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
no,
Major
and
minor.
you can come up with there's
It's
a
better.
ton of different options. I just kind of grabbed some.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to
Some-
let, allow staff to just proceed with the, seeking out a donor program for the naming rights for the playground and splash pad.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. J, discussion and possible action on sidewalk repair contract.
So, there was some sidewalk replacement work done at in front of the addition to the high school. and there's some before and after pictures in the packet. The same contractor that did some of that work, we requested quotes for redoing the sidewalk in the area where the church just came down on Pine Street. Because they're gonna be putting up a new fence there, and the sidewalk's really bad. I do have some photos of that in my director's report. And then another small section on Dewey Street. So again, we contacted 4 different sidewalk companies, and this guy was the only one that had time to do it yet this year.
So is this a full cost to the village, or is this a shared cost with the
So-
landowner?
The one with the church would be split, similar like with the school. The other one, I would say that it should be all on the property owner. 'Cause
The Dewey Street?
Dewey?
Is that what
Yeah,
you're talking
because it's due to the property owner's,
Equipment. I
equipment
replaced.
and
yeah.
their salt. It's all salt, I mean, you
Yeah.
can kinda tell it's all salt-based stuff, nothing else around has these issues. So,
We replaced our sidewalk in front of our house at our cost. At our cost.
Right.
So, because it was, what you see here for the church, we had an entire 100 and so feet of that. It was getting caught in our snow blower. It was bad. But we paid for it.
Any questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
Do you have any sort of a breakdown between these, or do you want this, how are you gonna put this, how are you gonna,
One is 12,000 and one is 4,000.
oh, is that, okay, yeah. Which one is 12, which one, well, the one by Bethlehem was, so this one with the 2 pictures here is the 12,000?
Yeah, by the church. That's a longer section.
And that's the section that's fenced off, so it's primarily, so we're splitting that with the church somehow?
Yeah.
How was this split with the high school done?
50/50.
Okay, it's similar with the church?
We're gonna do the same thing, yeah.
Okay.
And then over by Dewey Street, we're going to pay for it and then bill?
It gets billed, it gets invoiced to them, and then if they don't pay the invoice, it would go onto their taxes.
Okay.
Are they aware?
They're the ones that, well, I don't know if the owners called, but someone called one of our staff and complained about it, who would actually go work, the person who works out of there, I guess.
Okay.
Is that what these guys do? Is it,
Snow removal and that.
Oh, these guys, the
yeah,
contractor?
the AJ mud jacking? Is that-
Yeah, that's all they do, they do sidewalk.
That's all they do?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
Sidewalk driveway is concrete.
concrete work.
okay. Is there any kind of guarantee, or? We're not looking at a contract or anything, we're just looking at
Right.
an estimate for a work order.
Yeah, it's pretty typical for sidewalk repair, from my understanding. It's kind of what we get from BG or anywhere else.
Do we need to specify in the motion about the cost share on any bit of this, or is this just? That's what I'm wondering, like with the motion, does it need, because we've got really kind of 2 different scenarios here, like do you need a motion for 12,000 with a shared cost with Bethlehem Lutheran, and then 4,000 with a full reimbursement from the homeowner, or the landowner, I guess, that's what I'm wondering with the motion.
Yeah, if you wanted to, we used to have a policy on it, it was removed, or an ordinance on it, and it was removed. But we've kind of kept with that structure mostly. But yeah, there isn't really anything that designates how we charge, so if you would want, that would probably be preferred.
I
Has a
think we
con-
should do it that way.
Has a conversation been had, like, with this Dewey Street sidewalk? Like, they are gonna know this is coming?
We would have to contact them and let them know. They called us about it.
Yeah.
So we haven't told them that we're moving forward with anything yet.
Did they think that they were gonna be sharing the cost?
And-
Nice.
If they were thinking, oh, the village will fix this, but then
Mm-hmm.
they're the one.
Then my response to them, if they have an issue with with that, they can bring it to the board, I can add it to the board agenda, and they can discuss it with the board. And then we would be able to figure it out from there.
Yeah, that's what,
Then what are we agreeing to tonight if we haven't talked to them and said, hey, we repair, this is the cost that is to repair it, but you're footing the bill?
what authority are we using to do that?
But what is this agreeing to?
The agreement is for the work to be done.
Right, but if we haven't talked to them
Right.
about the 4,000, we have no agreement with them, and, okay, we replace it, and we'll have to eat it?
No, you guys can charge them. You can charge them I believe you can charge them through special assessment if you'd want. Otherwise, how we've always done it in the past is we invoice the homeowner, and then if they don't pay the invoice, we put it onto their tax roll.
To be honest, I would not be happy about getting a bill about something without even knowing about it.
Well, we're gonna call them before, but basically, if you guys approved going forward with the repair, which you almost have to because of the liability issues, from my understanding, when we were talking with Ashley a few weeks ago, it needs to get repaired. I mean, there's no sidewalk even visible anymore for half of it, so.
I understand
Right.
that, I just think, are we cart before the horse without even talking to
I don't
the
think
actual
so.
property owner?
No, because we never do that ever. In the past, we just, basically how it should work is if you do have issues with the sidewalk, they need to get replaced. If the state has regulations on the amount of like width between the crack size, and typically you're supposed to have those replaced. We've trying to get caught back
No,
up.
I get all that,
Right.
Yeah.
I just know,
They called because they had a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and they might be thinking we're
How
gonna
did
pay it
this
for
get
them.
removed from our ordinance? Because it was an ordinance.
Well, the amounts was at the request of the attorney.
So,
So we really don't have a foot to stand on to say to them,
Yes, you do.
we're
You
going to assess you
No.
100%.
No, the difference is if you have it written, then you have to abide by that written rule, and that was what the attorney said at the time. So doing it this way, removing it out, then you don't have to follow that policy, and you can assess each situation differently.
okay, so do we have to go through to do this, do we have to follow through just like a normal special assessment policy?
I think you would have a choice of a special assessment. You could do it as a special charge.
What's the difference?
Special assessment is typically for larger amounts, major public works.
Okay.
Special charge is, generally speaking, reimbursement by a property owner to a municipality for special work that was done in front of their house.
Okay.
And probably a special charge is more appropriate. A special assessment, you can provide installment payments, a special charge. The total amount is due at the end of the year. If it's not paid, then it goes on your tax bill.
Is there a specific process that has to be followed?
Yeah, there has to be a resolution,
Okay, and then that's it?
yes.
Okay.
And I think there's another method, I didn't bring my statute book, I think there's another method specifically for sidewalks. I'll have to look it up and then let Nathan know about it. I'm not real familiar with it, but there's another option for sidewalks.
Okay. So we need to have a motion in order to be able to move forward, or two motions.
We have had the conversations that you're discussing with the church about paying for half of it.
And they have it in their budget this year to do it. From our understanding, they said they'd be good with it, so, and they want it fixed as well.
It's been an accepted policy that we make an exception, that we're paying, like the schools and churches that we're.
So
Or just schools.
the old policy was this: if the homeowner called us wanting the sidewalk to be replaced, it would be 100% on the homeowner. If the village personnel initiated it, it was half. That was the old policy.
Okay.
That was removed out of our ordinance because different situations and whatnot. So pretty much that's kind of what happened here. Homeowner, this guy called. The other areas were ones that we noticed when we were walking around.
Now I can understand why it was taken out of the house, out of our ordinances, because that just doesn't, that
The
homeowner, that incentivizes the
They're never
homeowner to
gonna
never call.
Oh, yeah.
right, but
Yeah.
I think my guess is that the rationale was we don't budget unless we budget for that work to be done.
Okay,
And if we know of an issue, we have to fix it. We're obligated to.
okay.
So I think that was probably the logic behind it. I don't
Yeah.
know. It may not be sound, but
Yeah, if I was a homeowner with a sidewalk, I would wait until it gets really, really bad and then somebody sees it and I have to take care of it, so. Yeah, I understand why you get rid of it, but, so, I mean, I'm fine with creating an exception. Intellectually, I'm fine with having an exception for schools, for the sidewalk around the schools, and it's a very large project, and it's more of a public, all sidewalks are public, but we're talking about
For the business or.
large amount of traffic that is generated from a public, used facility.
Mhm.
So I can understand that, and both of these are in front of schools, so.
Right.
Whether it's a parochial school or the public school, there's still, still excessive amount of traffic and use because of that, so I'm okay with that.
We're not sure that the person that called on Dewey is the owner or just the operator out of a,
they didn't call us. They called one of our public works guys.
Who then brought it to our attention.
Right.
but I sort of feel like it needs to be the property owner, not just some
That's who we're-
employee that's working there. You know what I mean? Like,
That's who
because
we're
it's not
gonna
that
reach out
worker
to.
that's gonna pay the
Right.
bill, it's gonna be the owner in the case.
We're
of-
gonna reach out to the property owner. If this is passed tonight, we'd reach out to the property owner tomorrow, and try to set up a time to talk with them about it.
But if we say this now, we're committing to doing it, right?
I mean, I think we're stuck doing it
Either way.
regardless. Whether or not you guys, if they have an issue with it, and issue with themselves paying it, then like I said, we can bring it back to the board, or they can state their case to the board. But that would be,
But they triggered the ball rolling,
right.
somebody.
I see where you're coming from too, because this is right around the amount of assessments that were, $4,000. So I think out of respect, it would be good to follow up as soon as you can.
Well,
So we would need a motion to go ahead with this.
I have no idea what the motion would be.
Yeah.
Is there
I figured.
To
Two
approve the
separate-
contract,
Just
is
to prove the.
You would have to state it like Julie stated it. Basically, is how Nathan wants it to be stated.
Well, yeah, but in order to be able to do the special charge, we have to have a motion that's gonna.
Right.
that would
Just to
probably-
move
That could be
forward
done
with,
at a later
That would, the special charge, we'd have a resolution actually up, so it'd be like an R dash.
Right now, the motion is
okay,
just
so we're
to
just
accept
approving
the
the
work.
You're approving the
for
contract.
$16,000.
Okay, I got it. I'll make a motion to approve the contract for AG Mudjacking, in the amount of $16,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, Grace?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Okay, set up public safety committee meeting.
I take that one. I'm just looking to set up a public safety meeting to reevaluate the limited full-time position.
Okay.
Do you have dates in mind, or? September's pretty much open, so.
I'm gone the whole last week.
Matt, you're on the last week of September? Is that what you said?
I'll be gone the whole last weekend.
So, okay. All right. So,
September 14th, next Thursday. Time?
I'm looking. I currently have the 14th open. Sean?
Yeah.
Who else
If
do
it
we?
could be 6 o'clock, is that the earliest it could be, or,
Who's the fourth on that committee?
pardon me?
Who's the fourth? Is it Shauna, me, Pat, is it
I think Jane.
I
I
don't
think
know.
it's Jane.
I think it's Jane.
Jane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next September 14th?
Sure.
Okay,
What time?
6 o'clock.
6 good with everyone?
I'll have to leave, probably 6:45, but,
Have to leave at 6:45.
yeah. Is that enough time, do you think?
I think so.
Okay, then we should be good. L, discussion on administrator review. Did everyone get the examples that Nathan sent out today?
I did not have a chance to look at them. I received them, but I didn't have any time.
They are much better than ours. Believe me. I went through them all, and I numbered which ones I liked the best.
We don't really have one for administrator
Yeah.
from a board perspective. Ours is more from my perspective to department heads, and that's, it's a little different, so, there was, about 3 or 4, I think.
Three.
3 from other communities that were on our administrator's portal, that I pulled and
When do we have to have this done by? Before budget, so,
I mean, it doesn't. If you guys want to take some time, come back at the next meeting to decide on what kind of structure you want, I don't think it's gonna be a problem. I think in the past we've done it in October. I think for the most part, when we're doing budget, it's over budgeted and then brought down. And, yeah, if it is that. It's usually the opposite where, yeah.
What is the context of this review?
Just performance of myself from the board's perspective. Yeah. It's not, in the past, it hasn't necessarily been tied directly to wages, but it can be in certain instances. I think it's kind of,
It's a standard employee process, right? You just give a review,
Right.
your annual reviews for your employees.
yeah.
Nathan only reports directly to us, so we're the ones who have to provide a review of his performance.
And it helps me kind of figure out blind areas that I might have. So,
And set future goals and
Right.
whatever.
so basically we'll bring it back to the next meeting
yeah, we can do that.
and decide what we wanna do.
Sounds good.
Okay. We'll go to M, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion? Anything?
Do we have the UTV, I know it went through the county, it comes,
I think
it's gonna be active.
we were gonna
Is that a
have
couple
that
of
on
days?
part of the public safety meeting to
Okay.
discuss it, because part of it's in a little more detail on how you guys might want to structure going forward. So I
Okay.
think it would be part of the public safety, and then if you guys
And
want
then
to,
potentially moving forward to the
Right.
next meeting. Okay.
I'd like to discuss the wheel tax concept, which almost relates to UTVs as well. I'd like to discuss it.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to 10, report of village officials. A, clerk treasurer, James is in the packet. We'll go to B, director of public works, Aaron.
My report is in the packet. One other thing I just wanted to bring to the board's attention. I was contacted by McMahon, our consultant that's doing our plan on potential sewer upgrades, and they would like to present to this board And I guess I'd just like some direction whether, they said the presentation is about an hour. Whether you would like to do it at a board meeting, like at the end of a board meeting, or I could set up a special public works committee meeting to do it, or a committee of the whole meeting to do the presentation, and if you have a preference on any of those.
So it's about an hour?
He said it's about an hour.
So doing like committee of the whole at 5 o'clock before a board meeting? Because really, no,
I would.
it's just too long.
It's gonna be dense, because it's talking about what we need to do to the plant going forward.
Okay. It's above our head.
I think it might be above everyone's, but that's their job to kind of educate and kind of break it down to more layman's terms for all of us.
So are you suggesting more on the committee level? Because then you've got 5 versus,
No,
So
I'm
not
just
like
suggesting
everything
maybe
is
a different night where you might not want to have to go into a board meeting after,
okay.
just because some of those denser presentations, it gets hard then to go into.
The brain's dead.
Yeah.
It depends on who you are.
I would suggest setting
So are
it up
you-
as part of the Public Works meeting, and then anybody can attend anyway. Anybody can attend any of the committee meetings anyway. You're still an active member. We don't vote on
Right.
anything at the meetings. It's
still
just
can have-
informational.
You just say
And
there's
it's
a
a separate
quorum,
night,
which
yeah.
there always is a quorum, so. Should say it at
Come
the
on,
end of
vote.
every
So I don't care.
committee meeting.
It would
There could be a
It
quorum.
would make a little more sense to do it in a public works meeting, because it is
Yeah.
gonna get into
Okay.
denser stuff. And like you guys said, if they wanna come, they still can. The board members that aren't on that committee to, sit in.
So can the
Listen.
notice, like the email that goes out to the Public Works Committee members, could it also
Go
just
to the full
the
board.
full board, that way?
Mhm.
Because like I just think that way it's a little more on their radar.
Yep.
Do they have a timeline, Aaron?
Well, it's due at the end of the month, but they can present after it's been submitted.
So we're not scheduling it quite yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
So
I,
you can figure out when they can come and
Yeah,
get a hold of all of us?
Yeah, give us
if
some
that's the
dates.
way you
Yeah,
guys
give us some
wanna do.
dates and then
Yeah.
we'll create a
Give
public
us some
works
dates.
meeting.
You guys like Thursdays, most likely?
I don't like any days, but.
Yeah, Thursdays are kind of reserved for those sorts of things.
I'll send some dates up to the group and make sure everybody gets it.
Okay. Any questions for Aaron? Okay, we'll go to C, Police Chief.
My report is in the packet.
I do have a question. It was brought to my attention, who does the stop and go lights by Main and Nash? Who
County,
is responsible?
the county.
The county.
Yep.
I was asked, since the highway is closed, it's ridiculous how long people have to wait at that stop and go light. They're set up awful. The timing is awful. I mean, you got a backup on Nash Street, something fierce. Because of course you had Highway 15 flowing.
Mhm.
15's not flowing from New London now. So can we ask them to change those times a little bit?
I think the state would have to come in and change them.
We can reach out to you both.
Because the state's, I've seen the state working
Yeah,
on
I've
them
seen
in the
the
past.
DOT
So it's a
at
state
that
DOT.
box.
Especially
Well-
where school started now. People
Yeah.
are just like, really?
Aaron can look at it.
Yep.
Okay.
Put on a four-way flasher.
Any questions other than that for Chris?
No, we have Dash Down Nash this weekend, on Saturday. So, there's going to be a road closure, that we got approved for from Bethlehem, the church, to the school. So that would be between 8:30 and roughly 10:30.
How does somebody hit a parked squad car? I'm just curious.
They went to park in front of it and
Didn't stop.
clipped the whole front end of the squad car.
Okay.
They were on a medical call.
Just one of the things that I usually notice if it's a police car, I'm not gonna hit it,
I don't park
I
near it.
guess. Yeah.
Near it. Yeah.
Okay, just seems, I know accidents happen with everything, but it just, you
Yeah.
know, you tend to be a little bit, you know, more careful with certain vehicles that are out there.
But you got it fixed, right?
You know,
No.
Oh,
Um,
did you fix it?
yeah, I saw you driving
We-
it the other day, and on the way there must be,
Yeah, it was kind of fun, it was not funny, but I took it out to Schmidt's Auto Body to get a, estimate on it, and as soon as I hit a higher speed, the plastic went right down and started going under, so it's like just
Running it over it.
scraping the road, and I'm like, okay, I only need to go another block. So they, when I got it to Schmidt Salvage, they ended up, like tacking it up inside, and, I mean, all the clips are all busted off
Yeah.
of it. There's a
Zip
big
ties.
hole in the, there's a big hole in the bumper by the wheel well. All the clips are busted off on the, I don't know if it's gonna hold up to 55-mile-an-hour speed limits, but
Then was it during a medical call? Is it something that we're liable for on both sides? Was it a, no, okay.
it's,
the same thing happened with my wife's, all the clips busted, we zip tied it, and forgot we zip tied it, 3 years later, we finally got it fixed.
yeah.
So zip ties hold great on those bumpers.
Okay, we'll move to D, Library Director, Ally.
Really not a whole lot has changed in the last 2 weeks since we had a meeting, but we are working on doing some exciting new programs. We had a genealogy presentation yesterday, so that's new for us. Just starting new programs for the fall.
Okay. Any questions for Ally? Okay, we'll go to E, Attorney. Rich, do you have anything?
Nothing?
Okay. F,
Ashley's gonna be on her 12-month.
12 months.
12-week maternity leave, so have a little patience with us. We're a man down.
Okay, we will do that. F, Administrator, Nathan.
I attended the Fox West Chamber meeting today, and then after kind of started discussing, the next Village Voice, is probably gonna be done through a different company, that should be cheaper than what we currently do, and they're gonna do everything from basically putting it together. We just send them the articles, and then they print, deliver it, and it'll be a nicer finish. So annual cost estimated would probably be around $10,000 instead. Similar to what we're paying now, but it's gonna be a nicer product and less work at the admin office. So that in the future they're gonna kind of put in the ads too, going, probably in the September issue of next year. By that time, we'll have, give us enough time with fundraising to see where those ads come in at, and that's kind of what we're planning for right now. Other than that, just, meeting with a lot of, developers right now. And that's about it.
Okay. Any questions for Nathan? Okay, G, Building Permit Report. It is in the packet. 11, Communication and Miscellaneous Business. A Black Otter Lake District News.
One second, there was one other thing that Aaron was.
So, yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention, is that over the last couple of weeks, we've been meeting with, personnel from, WISDOT. We had an initial meeting at the entrance where stormwater from the areas around the school goes into Black Otter Lake. To his credit, Nathan did a really good job of documenting a lot of the basically failures of their erosion control over the last couple of years when they were building Highway 15 bypass. It got overwhelmed. Yeah, it just got overwhelmed, and we had a lot of sediment that washed through that stormwater opening and went down into into the lake. So we met with them. They said typically they'd like to handle that right when it happens, and it's hard to prove kind of how much of that sediment actually washed down from there. But they were agreed to do some test pits. When they did the test pits, they were actually able to see that basically lighter colored soil from the road prism that had been deposited in that channel that came from those stormwater events. So they've agreed at their cost to come in and dredge that area basically from Main Street to where the bridge is and a little bit past at their cost to basically be a good steward to the village and remove some of the sediment that was deposited there. And they're also going to actually dig it even a little bit deeper right by the bridge so that we can use that area to clean out sediment in the future if more stuff builds up there. So that project's going to be going on in the next couple weeks, just kind of an FYI. But
They're gonna dredge inside the lake boundaries, is that what?
inside the channel boundaries, yeah,
Inside.
and they have a agreement with the DNR so that they can do that.
Okay.
Where is this happening?
Basically, from right across the street from Quick Trip. That's where it all kind of got deposited in there to where the little bridge is between Black Otter and Alonzo. So there'll be some machinery in there, taking out the material, and then they'll go back through it, put some erosion control blanket down and reseed everything. And that's all gonna happen this year, so we can we'll have enough time to get regrowth on the banks and everything.
Will that disrupt the planting that was done?
Yes.
Should
Just in that area, what we did do is kind of go through and look for some of I got a list of species that were planted.
Mhm.
And we're gonna try to kind of hand dig some of those up and just transplant them. The plan was to do it last Friday, but with 100-degree temperatures,
Yeah.
they're not gonna take anyway. So we may have some time, early next week before they get in there to get some of those out of there and save what plantings we can.
Okay.
So you're just talking about the stretch between Alonzo and Otto Miller Park, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, just a little channel, just the
That
front
channel
part.
that runs.
Yeah.
Otto
Alonzo
Miller.
and
Or-
Black
Baseball.
Or
Black
Otto-
Black Otter.
Black
Black
Otter,
Otter.
sorry, Black Otter Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alonzo and Black,
Yeah.
we have too many parks.
You can never have too many parks.
Yeah, so, but between Black Otter and
And
Alonzo,
just up to
right?
the bridge, from the road to the bridge.
From the road to the bridge, okay,
Thank you for documenting.
okay, thank you.
Okay, now we will move to 11 and Black Otter Lake District News. Jane?
The annual meeting was held and it was well attended. At least that was the first one I was at. I thought it was well attended. Everything went well. The harvester is supposed to hopefully, all fingers crossed, be back still this fall. And we elected 2 new board members, one including Aaron. So that'll bring the board up to 5.
And then one thing that the members wanted me to address was they wanted to thank Nathan for all the help with Black Otter Lake District because they said it just meant a world of difference to have your help. So they wanted it to be noted.
I'll second that.
So then we will go to B, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News. Jim?
There's one.
Okay, C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report News. It is in the packet. D, Hortonville Civic Association. Jane?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, E, Senior Activities Committee. Pat?
The 7-week planning ahead workshop starts this coming Tuesday, and it'll run from 3 to 4:30. There's 11 people signed up right now. There's room for a few more, so if anybody's interested, there are slots available. On the 18th, we will have the birthday potluck and bingo all combined. We're doing that with Sarah from the library is going to be assisting with that. The registration for our Senior Autumn Fest, the form is going out in the Village Voice, so all the residents will receive that, and then we did a separate mailing for everybody on our mailing list outside of the village. So we did save probably 150 to 200 that we didn't mail because it was included with the Village Voice. And our next meeting is on the 14th at noon.
Any questions for Pat? Okay, we'll go to 12, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Is there anything? Okay. 13, I would need a motion to appoint a minute taker for closed session. I will appoint Shauna. Is there a
If
second?
you want, you can use someone if you want. If you want to
Sure.
use the deputy clerk, you can.
Oh, we'll let her go home.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good.
Sure. I appoint Shauna.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. 14, I would need a motion to go into closed session.
I can make a motion to go into closed session under state statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
I'll second that.
Roll call. Grace?
Aye.
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 Okay. 15, we would need 5-minute recess to clear the meeting room.
Question about that. We didn't-
18, any action on matters discussed in closed session? There is none. 19, I would need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are now adjourned. 8:38.